Welcome to our 9/11 informational seminar. And thank you, BMCC, for letting us host this event here. Thank you for everybody who took time out of their busy schedules. I know we're cutting into your dinner time, your homework time, so we want to thank you for that. Raise your hand who lived or went to school or worked in Lower Manhattan on 9/11. We're here to help you. No one owns 9/11. 9/11 responders, volunteers, the people of Lower Manhattan, the students, the teachers, those who work down here, we are all equal shareholders. For those who saw us on TV advocating to get a bill passed in 2010, 2015, and 2019, we weren't just doing it for 9/11 responders. We were doing it for everybody affected by 9/11. So you've all come to the right place tonight because you have the best of the best on this stage. 9/11 responders who worked on the pile, like myself, we went home. Many of you stayed here 24/7. For the students, instead of being educated, you were inhaling toxic dust. This event for you tonight is so that you can learn what you're entitled to and what you've earned. You know, tomorrow is the anniversary of when I was injured, when 8,000 pounds of steel crushed my left foot. So when Michael told me that he wanted me to MC tonight, I was a little hesitant. But I knew the importance of being here tonight to share vital information with all of you. So gather the information that they all share with you tonight, and if you know somebody that's not here tonight, but lived down there, went to school down there, worked down there, then bring them home in a folder. We're going to share a lot of information with you tonight. We're going to do a Q&A with you later, and I hope you all get what you deserve. With that being said, our first guest. You know, in 2010, she was handed a bill that wasn't supposed to pass. But her tenacity and her leadership and her ability not to accept no helped pass that bill over the finish line. And a decade later, she was by our side doing it again. Our New York State Senator, Kirsten Gillibrand.
Thank you, John. I want to thank everyone who's come here tonight because John's quite right. Over the last decade, we have all fought very hard so that everyone has access to the health care that they need. It is very important that every community member who lived anywhere south of Houston understands that you are covered. You are part of the group of people that have guaranteed health care if you have a 9/11 related disease. So it is really important that you know your rights, and that if you are sick or feel that something's wrong, that you immediately go to our 9/11 healthcare providers. They have the kind of expertise where they can diagnose you precisely based on the toxins that you breathed in for the weeks and months thereafter as these toxins continue to emerge from ground zero. Now, I just want to thank the people on the stage. Each one of them sitting here today spent the last 10 years advocating for you to make sure that all of you have access to the health care and compensation that you need and deserve and have earned. Our first responders answered the call of duty that day, all of them, whether it was a firefighter or a police officer or an EMT or someone who worked in the morgue or any other public servant who did the hard work, corrections officers, local law enforcement, they all answered the call. And they came to Washington week after week, month after month, along with our community members, along with our students, to tell the story to members of Congress about what happened that day and what happened the weeks and months thereafter. And the one thing that Congress couldn't do is look away. When a first responder or a community member is standing in front of them and saying, my best friend is dying, or themselves, the first time they came to Washington, they walked. The second time they came, they limped with a cane or crutches. The third time they came, they were in wheelchairs. The fourth time they came, they had an oxygen tank. And they couldn't come the last time. So that's the truth. People we know and love are dying every day. More firefighters have died since 9/11 than on 9/11. And that's the truth of what happened on 9/11. So we are here to serve you. My office is here to serve you in every capacity you need help. If you need us to handle your case, make sure you know who the right doctors are or who to see. Please just literally reach out to my Senate office. You can call our front office any day of the week and we will be there for you. It has been a privilege to fight for you and to make sure that your voice was heard in Washington. The biggest problem in Washington isn't the lack of bipartisanship. The biggest problem in Washington is the lack of empathy. And so being able to tell our story over and over again over the last decade to finally make the healthcare piece and the compensation piece permanent was the most important thing I've done as your senator in the last decade. So God bless you all, and I'm glad you came out tonight. You have experts here to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Who thinks she should have been the next president of the United States? Hillary, can you play that video, please? Hi, I'm John Field, president and founder of the Feel Good Foundation. I'm also a 9/11 responder. I was there. Were you?
What are you doing?
I was doing a video for NIOSH for the outreach to get 9/11 responders.
Oh, you're trying to get outreach to get people to do it. Who's the
Yeah.
spokesperson? Because you're going to need someone like likable. You're going to need someone that people want to listen to. So who's going to do it? Were you the one who was doing it? As a matter of fact, you know, I lived in Lower Manhattan. I was there. I should probably sign up.
You should.
Do you have information? Do you have a sheet? Do you have anything?
I have a form from Mr. John Stewart.
If you were there, they're here for you, and they can help.
You know, I got a chance to meet our next speaker 10 years ago, and he asked me to come on the show, and I said no. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I like to think the friendship has grown over the last 10 years. I've been honored to work with him. I've seen him grow as a human being. I've seen his stand-up routine expand when he was working in dive bars. I like to think I made him famous. But I've never, ever met somebody as compassionate as John Stewart. I've never met anybody with that kind of platform and forum and resources who is so low maintenance. I don't even think he takes baths. I've just never seen somebody with that amount of love to give to everybody he meets. And I hope one day to emulate everything he's done and that he's going to continue to do. And he's been there from the beginning, and he was there at the end. and the 9/11 community, not just responders, but all you survivors and students and teachers. We all owe him a warm, heartfelt, grateful thank you.
Thank you, John Field, for that delightful roast. Son of a... I want to thank you all, first of all, for showing up here. And I want to thank John, obviously. Truly, if ever I was in trouble, he's the first person I would call, because I know he would be in worse trouble. So it would make my trouble seem less. No, he's truly the most tenacious advocate I've ever met, and we're all incredibly fortunate to have him. You know, John Field worked the body for 14 years down in Washington, and all I had to come in at the end was touch the head, and they fell. So thank you. The first thing that I hear from the non-first responder community in Lower Manhattan is, look, I'm sick, but I don't deserve anything. I'm not a first responder. I just lived here. I just studied here. I just went to school here. I just raised a family here. So I just want to remind everybody, as you walked in to the room tonight, to the auditorium, did you see what's going on outside in Tribeca? Did you feel the vibrancy on the street? Did you see the families and people walking their dogs and going to restaurants and generally living their lives in an incredibly engaged and vital fashion? Because that wouldn't have happened without the courage of the survivors and the students who stayed here and didn't allow this terrible act to drive them from their homes. Your presence here, and that applause you deserve, your presence here was an act of courage and resilience. We all remember what this neighborhood was like in the days and weeks and months following. It was, for many of us, a tomb. And I don't think any of us will ever forget the smell and the fires. And I know that you didn't necessarily come back to your homes and your lives and your schools to raise this community up necessarily, or to raise the country up, but that's what it was. Your presence stabilized a chaotic time, not just in this city, but in the country. And the price that you pay for it now is one that means you've earned our respect, our attention, but also your own health care. Because your courage and your resilience came at a cost for you. Now, I'm not an expert on the programs that are available for you, and there's great people that are going to be here that are going to tell you what's available, and they're going to tell you how to access it. But what I am an expert on is in gratitude. And I'm incredibly grateful to the community of Lower Manhattan for coming back. You know, look, the first responders, I'm in awe. But I also am in great awe of those who came back to a war-torn neighborhood that was clearly toxic. We knew it. I don't care how many EPA secretaries would say, it's safe here. None of us is an idiot. But you stayed anyway, and you allowed this area to grow and to become the hub that, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't before 9/11. Like, we all remember that too. Like, it was us and the cast of Ratatouille down here. Like, this place was rats and warehouses. And now it's this high-end restaurants, and it's a whole thing. But it's your courage and your resilience that brought this place back. So please, I urge you, access what you are owed. Access the programs that exist to help you get through this trying time in the way that you helped us get through that trying time. So, thank you for being here, and please don't be shy about asking all these people the expert questions that I know they're here to answer for you. So thank you all very much for coming out.
Before I introduce the next speaker, I got a bone to pick with Mr. Jon Stewart. He's not that tough. You know, John and I did a video back in 2015 at the 9/11 Museum. And there I gave John a form to fill out. John lived in Lower Manhattan. John lived in the geographic map of the target zone of the aftermath. John promised me that he would go into the program. But then this year, when we were in DC, we took time out to do another video. It was on News 12. It was shown on the Jumbotron at Citi Field the other night. And Mrs. Stewart has still yet to sign up for the program. No, there is no defense.
As a Jew, I have been sick for many years. I've been blessed to have wonderful health resources and insurance, and I feel.
Are you done talking? So with that being said, just imagine if Jon Stewart signed up and let everybody know that he was going into the program, how many people would follow? Because 4 out of 5 9/11 responders are in the program. 1 in 15 survivors and students are in the program. But if Mr. Stewart went in the program, it might be 10 out of 15, or wow, maybe 15 out of 15.
I didn't realize this was an intervention.
Please sit down, Mr. Stewart. So what do you guys think? Jon Stewart should go in the program? We have lawyers up top, John, that will help you out in a little bit. All right? I don't want your autograph. I know you, man. Little housekeeping. You guys all have this in your folders. This is very important. Later, when we do a Q&A, please fill this form out, and everybody, they'll get in touch with you, and they're going to help you, and we're going to save a lot of lives tonight. Our next speaker, man, she's a one-woman show. And I've watched this young woman grow. She was fighting for you guys before everybody else was fighting for you guys. And I feel bad for her because she didn't get to enjoy her late teens and early 20s and mid-20s. She's been out there ever since advocating for everybody in Lower Manhattan. And wow, I think she's tougher than me. And I always considered myself tough. Lila Nordstrom.
Hello. Get myself organized. So my name is Lila Nordstrom, and I was 17 and a student at Stuyvesant High School on 9/11. And a couple of months ago, I testified along with John and a couple of other people on this stage at that hearing in Washington for the extension of the VCF. And the reason I was there was to tell a really specific story that is not the story that you normally hear about 9/11, which was the story of what happened to students on 9/11, and specifically why we not only deserve access to the federal health programs, but also why we need them. And I was called upon to do this because back in 2006, I started an advocacy organization to talk about the needs of student 9/11 survivors. We started at Stuyvesant, but we soon started working with people from other schools as well. And because of that, I've been making trips down to Washington, as John said, and been doing that for the last 13 years. And I wanted to first talk a little bit about the student story to make sure that we've all sort of thought critically about what happened to all of us after 9/11, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the resources that are available to us. The student story doesn't get told in the media as often, and neither does the downtown community's story, but there were thousands of children who were attending school down here on 9/11 and who returned during the cleanup. And like every school in the area, Stuyvesant, where I was a student, was evacuated on 9/11 and then was displaced briefly, but returned back to this area on October 9th. That's less than a month after the attacks. BMCC was already back. Pace University was already back. Murray-Bergstrom High School never left. The other schools in the area, which served much younger children, were back by February. And by the end of the cleanup effort, 19,000 public school students and roughly 25,000 college students had returned to Lower Manhattan and were experiencing the conditions that we all know were down here. Many of us returned back to schools that had not been adequately cleaned. Many of us returned before the fires were out. The environment outside was continually being recontaminated by trucks that were carrying debris to the barge that was located right next to this building in Stuyvesant and to other, to fresh kills, to sites around the city. And that also doesn't touch on the downtown residents who returned back to this area with small children, to the office workers who were not given appropriate guidance when it came to cleaning up the spaces that they were returning to. So a lot of them were forced to clean up contaminated spaces without proper equipment, without proper advice from professionals. And now a slew of health conditions have been linked to those toxins, and they include respiratory and gastrointestinal and sinus issues. They include mental health issues, and as I'm sure you've heard in the press, they also include many cancers. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about what programs are available to people like me and probably people like you. And because the VCF's been in the news quite a bit, I want to focus specifically on the World Trade Center Health Program. The World Trade Center Health Program has been mentioned because it is often your first stop. If you are filing a VCF claim, you have to have your conditions certified by the health program. But I don't think a lot of people realize how amazing a resource it is in and of itself. It's a treatment program that offers care and yearly screenings to people who are from the community who are sick with a 9/11 related health condition. And what that means is that anyone who is suffering from the long list of conditions that NIOSH considers linked to the World Trade Center exposures is able to go into this program, get a screening, get their conditions certified with the program, and then receive treatment at no cost to them forever, for the rest of their life. This program is extended until 2090. There is no requirement that you definitively link your condition to 9/11. The link is presumed if it's one of the covered conditions, so you don't have to worry about going in and worrying that you can't definitively say that your asthma is caused by 9/11. If you have asthma, if you are a 9/11 survivor, then you are able to get access to the resources in this program. The program is also kind of amazing because it treats people at Bellevue in New York City, but I actually live in California. I do this work from California, and I am able to participate in something called the Nationwide Provider Network, which finds me doctors near where I live. So if you have friends or former neighbors or former coworkers that no longer live in New York City, they are able to get treated where they live through this program. The program reports back to the the doctors report back to the program so that they are able to move some of the research aims of the program forward, but you're able to get care wherever you live. And then, as a final note, you'll probably hear a lot about serious illnesses and cancers, or you probably already have in these presentations, but I just want to be clear that this program also treats chronic illnesses, and Those are illnesses like acid reflux and asthma and sinus issues, and it treats mental health issues like anxiety and PTSD and depression. And you don't have to be critically ill to have access to this program. This program will treat your chronic conditions. It will pay for the prescription drugs that you use to treat these conditions. And once you're in the program, if you suspect that you have another 9/11 linked condition, it will send you to screenings to find out if you need to be certified for those conditions as well. So you don't need to feel like there is a burden on you to be sick enough to get into this program. If you are sick with a 9/11 related condition, then you can get treatment from this program for the rest of your life at no cost to you. And then I'm sure, as many of the speakers after me will mention, if you are able to get, if you are able to get a certification for a physical health condition, you can also get compensation potentially from the VCF if you're within their boundaries. But I think a lot of the time, people don't realize what a high value the health program actually has to the community. A lot of people don't realize how amazing a resource it is. And I think also a lot of people don't realize that just by having been a part of this community, you have done your part to earn access to it. You do not need to feel like just because there are survivors with worse stories out there. I mean, that's something we hear a lot, is survivors hesitant to access these programs because somebody else has a worse story. If you are within the boundaries of this program, the health program's boundaries are Houston Street and then a part of Western Brooklyn. If you were there after 9/11 and you breathed in those toxins, you do not have to feel that you are stealing someone's spot in this program or that you have not, had enough exposure. If you qualify, then you should absolutely take advantage of it. And if you know people who live outside of the city and want more information about this, this is information that can be quite difficult to access when you don't live in New York City. The local media here covers it quite a bit, but it gets almost no coverage outside the city. So please, this is not up, but direct people to our website, which is studentsof911.org. There's information that is applicable to anyone, no matter where they live, about how to access these programs. And so please pass that along to your friends and neighbors and get in touch with us if you have any questions about the process or what you need to prove to show that you were down here, anything like that. And with that, I will pass it back to Mr. Field.
So I've been asked to shuffle the lineup. So if you're up there listening, Hillary. Our next speakers are the New York City Schools Chancellor of New York, City Department of Education, Richard Carranza, United Federation of Teachers President Michael Mulgrew, and 9/11 cancer survivor of the United Federation of Teachers, Ellie Angler.
Good evening, everyone. I've attended quite a few of these events over the years, and people always look at me and say, why is a union guy here talking to us? And it's very simple, because we have 29 schools who were affected by 9/11. We had 2,500 staff members and 19,000 students. And as you have already heard today, not all of them are aware or have signed up for something that they should be signing up for. So we have taken on, with all of these advocates here, the task of trying to get everyone to understand that they have rights, and it is imperative that they sign up, because we all fought very, very hard to make a lot of things happen, especially just recently in DC, but now it's time to do the hard work of making sure that everyone understands that they need to sign up. And I know when I speak to staff and students at times, because remember, those students, we just heard from a student who was in high school. 1 week after 9/11, there were schools inside of the zone that were open. And we're talking about children in first grade coming back to school with a nice new backpack because we were told by the EPA everything was fine. A couple of years ago, they apologized. That was very nice of them to apologize. But those students, when I talk to them, they're like, I feel fine. Why would I sign up? Because now they're 19 and 20 years old. They're 25 years old. They said, I feel fine. I said, what happens if you don't feel fine in 10 years? What happens if you don't feel fine in 15 years? You have these rights. Just sign up. We can get you to access to the people because there are so many people, so many wonderful people involved here. So that is why we are here today. And I'd like to introduce, because this, I found a really great partner last year when this new schools chancellor came in, Richard Carranza. He was someone who, the minute we decided discussing this, he says, well, what can we do? And so now I'd like to reintroduce you all to our schools chancellor, but you're all also, I'm asking you, if you see anyone, just please amplify the message. Sign up. Come on, we can get you the access to the information. 15 years from now, God forbid something happens, we want to make sure that you have your rights in place, because that's why we do all of this work. So this is the schools chancellor of New York City, what we call each other, my brother from another mother, Mr. Richard Carranza.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to say on behalf of the 1.1 million students in the New York City Department of Education, I want to thank you, John. I want to thank everyone that has advocated for these benefits, but they're not benefits, they're a right. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank, I also want to thank Michael Mulgrew and Ellie for your hard work on this. We are your partners, and while we think it's important that we teach students about 9/11 in terms of curriculum so that they will never forget our history, it's also critical that we reach our students and our staff members, our teachers who were in the schools 18 years ago. If you've heard Michael say 19,000. So I'm here this evening to announce that with our partners in the United Federation of Teachers, we're launching an advocacy campaign in an effort to reach every single one of those 19,000 individuals. And our campaign will consist of, we are mailing letters this week to anyone who was in the New York City Public Schools as a student enrolled near the World Trade Center on or after September 11, 2001. The letter will include information about the health program and the Victim Compensation Fund. We are also launching a social media campaign leveraging all of our resources and everything that we have at our disposal to get the information out to our alumni that live in all corners of the country and the world, but also to our teachers and staff members that were here during that time period. We will also host a joint information event with the UFT on October 28th in an effort to raise awareness and to continue the information flow as we go forward. We are not a one event thinking about one event. This is about the start of a continuous process of getting information out. And as I've mentioned, we are committed to not stopping until we have reached every single person and that every single one of them has signed up. So it's good to be partners with the UFT, but it's also thank you for all of your advocacy, John, and everyone else on stage. Thank you.
So I have a reputation. My name is Ellie Engler. These two guys behind me know as someone that could hock you to death about following up on a certain issue, but there was no hocking involved with the chancellor and with the president of the union when it came to notifying the 19,000 students that were in school from the ages of 5 to 18, Lila is one of them, that they may have been exposed. So you may be wondering, because my grandson wondered, why I'm wearing a polka dot dress. I'm wearing a polka dot dress because I want to connect the dots to everyone sitting here. Okay? So around September 15th, the New York City Department of Ed, with their Division of School Facilities, the School Construction Authority, and a team from the United Federation of Teachers went around to 12 targeted schools to inspect them, to make sure they were cleaned properly, and to make sure that the air testing was suitable for people to re-enter, students to re-enter. The EPA told us it was safe. We kind of knew it wasn't, but the schools did reopen. And then the EPA, Christy Todd Whitman apologized. Here's connecting the dots. I'm trained as an industrial hygienist, an engineer with safety and health background. I went into the schools unprotected, no Tyvek suit, no respirator, and I said, this doesn't seem kosher to me. But I went in because my job was to make sure we could reopen the schools. And we did. We did. And time went on, and the schools got reoccupied. And those of us that were down here, we smelled the smells, we saw the dusts, and no matter how clean a school might have been, at the moment in time we did an air test, once you opened the door, there was tracking of dust coming in, everything changed. So life goes on. 12 years ago, I developed breast cancer. Okay, I had major surgery, I had chemotherapy, I've developed severe asthma, and life continued on. And here's where we need to connect the dots. I know about this stuff. I'm trained in industrial hygiene. It wasn't until 2 years ago that I was sitting at lunch with some friends that they said, gee, did you ever think your cancer might be related to the work that you did, the exposure that you had? I said, oh, no, no, no. And they said, but really, you were down here for months. You were in the schools. You were reopening them. And I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. And from under the table, and I'm going to embarrass her, my good friend, Dr. Jackie Moline, I text her. I said, gee, you think my breast cancer could have been related to 9/11? And she wrote back to me, we better talk. I applied. This is 2 years ago. I should have known. I'm an expert in this field. 2 years ago, I applied. I became certified as a first responder because I was down here so much, and I'm covered. So even though I belong to a wonderful union with wonderful benefits, when I go to get my Advair every month, zero. It costs me zero because I'm part of the World Trade Center program and I'm not paying for any of my medications. So here to connect the dots, I can't thank these two guys enough, and we move onward. Thank you.
Thank God, because I was going to wear my polka dotted dress tonight. Don't judge me. And I got nice legs. You know, before I introduce our next speaker, and our next speaker is the reason why we're here tonight. She's worked with all of us here on stage, and she's a cancer survivor herself. But there should have been somebody else to speak with her. And for those who don't know Olivia Cousins, I've never had a chance to meet this woman, but I did my homework, and wow, that's an impressive resume. Sadly, when she was diagnosed with cancer, she died 3 weeks after diagnosis. She was a professor here for 32 years. She was a champion for social justice, civil rights, history, and in her spare time, she loved photography. But if I got into it and I read her bio and her eulogy, I believe her daughter Aisha is here tonight. Please stand up. I am so sorry for your loss. And I feel shortchanged that I never got to meet your mother, so I'm going to have to live with that one because from what I heard from people, I heard she was just a beautiful soul, so thank you. With that, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Olivia Cousins. Thank you. Our next speaker, again, is the reason why we are here. And I've gotten to meet Yvonne a few times now, and Yvonne, you are crazy. and I love you. You have the energy of 100 gladiators, and to survive cancer and to have that kind of attitude, just like Ellie. You know, it's funny how we react when we find out we have cancer. And when your resolve is tested and your character is tested, it usually turns people into advocates, not only for themselves, but others. So let's give a round of applause for Yvonne Pang.
I'm Professor Yvonne Pang from the Accounting Department here at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. Although I was not here on the morning of 9/11, I was teaching in this building in the fall of 2001. BMCC was closed until the beginning of October. Like everyone else, I then returned to work when the EPA assured us that the air was safe. Since Fitterman Hall was severely damaged, some faculty ended up in the trailers on the West Street side of this building. 20,000 students and 3,000 faculty and staff at BMCC were all exposed to the same toxic dust as the firefighters and police officers. 16 years later, in October 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Since I did not have enough sick days to cover my entire treatment period, I was on the verge of losing my job. However, the potential disaster was avoided through the generous donation of sick leave from 20 members of the BMCC faculty and staff. The greatest gift that anyone can give another is the gift of time. I will be eternally grateful to these individuals for their donations, which enabled me to stay on payroll. I went through a double mastectomy, 4.5 months of chemotherapy, and 33 daily sessions of radiation over a 9-month period. A year after my diagnosis, I received a phone call from a friend about the Victim Compensation Fund. Up to this point, I had never heard of the Zadroga Act, the firm of Barasch McGarry, or that the Victim Compensation Fund covered over 68 types of cancer. Needless to say, I was overjoyed when I found out that there were resources available to help me. This was a happy accident. Otherwise, I would still be clueless, and this opportunity would pass me by. I'm here today through the grace of God. This is the reason why I'm here on this stage tonight. I was given the gift of time and knowledge, which helped improve my outcome. I believe this is now my turn to spread the news and help others become aware of what resources are available to them. After tonight, you also have the ability to pass on your knowledge to others in need. You can make a difference. As Mahatma Gandhi said, in a gentle way, you can shake the world. We cannot control what life throws our way. The only thing we can control is our reaction to these events. Cancer is a wake-up call to live your life as if each day is your last and as tomorrow is promised to no one. I plan on living my life joyfully, without regrets, doing the things that I love, with gratitudes for all the blessings I have received and yet to receive, and with the expectation that the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to my story.
Earlier, I asked you to raise your hand who was down there, who went to school down there. Raise your hand who's been diagnosed with cancer here. It's a lot of people. I hope you guys sign up and get into the programs tonight. Our next speaker, man, I like to say she's the smartest woman I ever met. But that would be chauvinistic. She's the smartest person I've ever met. She, I was there in the beginning. I helped create the World Trade Center Hope program. And I watched this doctor do amazing things. Probably doesn't get enough credit for the work she's done. And while many of her colleagues like to fill up the airtime in the media and be the typical male chauvinists that they are, this woman is behind the scenes working and busting her ass and making a difference and saving lives. And that's what tonight's about, is saving lives. So my dear friend, Dr. Jackie Moline.
I'm not going to take that one. Good evening, everyone. Before I start, so I don't forget, I want to acknowledge two wonderful women in the audience, Mary Fetchett and Stephanie Langham, who are from a fantastic organization, Voices of 9/11. And they have been providing resources for people in the community since about 2011 and a half. So you can go to their website, but they have wonderful programs, and they have a program every year around 9/11 for community folks, and it's always a pleasure to see them and participate in their program. So was anyone here on October 11th, 2001? Was anyone in this room on October 18th? I'm sorry, it was October 18th, 2001. I have a weird numerical memory. I can remember the date. So I spoke that night. There was a community forum in this room on that night. So when John says I've been involved from the get-go, I've been involved since very early on. And we came here, and I will never forget that a gentleman stood up in the back and he said, there are going to be cancers. And there were a number of us who were involved in taking care of folks who became ill, and this is before any programs existed. And we didn't have any answers. We didn't even know what was in the dust. And the fires are still raging. And it was one of the most unsettling moments for me as a physician, because I had no answers. And we could only say we don't know. We do know that nothing is going to happen in the next few months cancer-wise, because it takes the body longer to develop, but that was all we could say. So we've learned a lot since then. And my role, I initially was at Mount Sinai, and we started the World Trade Center medical programs. We actually started seeing folks in September 2001, primarily people who were working on the pile who came in, but started working with a number of colleagues. Dr. Joan Reibman started programs for community residents, working with the New York State Department of Health. And I worked with my colleagues at Mount Sinai. I'd just like to recognize a couple of names, Steve Levin, who's no longer with us, and Robin Herbert, who's no longer working, who really were instrumental in starting the program. There were some wonderful colleagues at the fire department, Dave Prezant and Carrie Kelly, who spearheaded the program there. You know, over the past 18 years, we have fought, and John and I have been many, many times to Congress, which, partisan anything aside, is a beautiful building. And I've had the opportunity to be in rooms that I didn't even know existed in the United States of America that make you think you're in Italy, because they are the most beautiful rooms you will ever see in the speaker's quarters or chambers or wherever it is. But it's a really beautiful thing, and we were able to leverage to get funding year after year after year until we finally got the Zadroga Act with the help of John Stewart and John Feel and many of the people on stage and all the other advocates. And these programs exist for the responders, for the firefighters, and for the community, and that was a big push to make sure that the community was involved. Kimberly Flynn has been a tireless advocate for all of you, and I don't know if she's here tonight, but she has been phenomenal in all the work that she has done and never given up to try to make sure that the community got the resources that it needed. I have no notes, so it's really dangerous to start naming names because I will leave people out. So I'm going to stop with the names now because I don't want to leave someone out who should be named. But what we've learned, and you know, DUS doesn't know whether you're a worker, whether you're a building reoccupant, whether you're a community resident. The air can't differentiate when you're breathing in what your title is. Our lungs are breathing it in all the same way. So the health effects that we would see in one group are going to be the same regardless of what your category is. So we're seeing health effects across the board from people who had the exposures. The issue is, did you have the exposure? So there are a number of cancers that have been included, and some of them, these are the most common ones listed, and there are many, many other cancers that are among the 68, and they were added in around 2012, and it took years for the science to catch up with the information, to do the studies that would provide the evidence for the federal government to cover them. It wasn't that we didn't believe that the cancers would be there, it was that there had to be demonstrable proof for the government to be able to say to Congress and convince people that, yes, you need to cover these things. Similarly, we didn't have as many issues with things like asthma and sinus problems and GERD and many of the things Lila talked about earlier, and PTSD and anxiety and depression, because we saw that immediately. But we've had folks that have had lung transplants in the programs. We've had folks who have developed who have needed stomach surgery because their GERD has been so bad. Sleep apnea is a really common disorder, and it's often seen when people have problems with their sinuses. Their sinuses are blocked. It leads to mouth breathing and all sorts of other problems. But, you know, I've been enmeshed in World Trade Center health for 18 years. And I had a conversation we've done, those of us in the various World Trade Center health programs have done various programs to try to educate other doctors, and that are national programs about World Trade Center related conditions, so that when folks like Lila, who lives in California, go to their doctor, they might have some resources to look up. A friend of mine who lived downtown, and actually I thought she moved to Battery Park actually in 2003, but it turned out she moved in 2001, was recently diagnosed with a cancer. And a mutual friend said, you know, I think she might be eligible for the program. And so I called her up and I said, you know, I think you're eligible for the program, for the Survivor program, because you were a community resident. Your cancer care, we can cover it. You've got young kids. There's a victim compensation fund. I know everyone. I can connect you. I can help you every step of the way. And she said, but my doctor said it wasn't related. And I said, your doctor doesn't know what they're talking about. No offense to your doctor. I don't know who her doctor is, so it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a presumption. So there's no scientific way they could say that it was not related. So my advice to her was, think about it, fill out the forms, I'll help you every step of the way. So this is still happening among folks that I know, and I have the connections to make things easy for people. But for those of you who don't, there are people here who can help you. There are a couple of, in the packet, you got the booklet that has the statistics. There's the website, the Center for Disease Control website has lots of information about our programs. And by our programs, I mean the World Trade Center Health Program, the Survivor Program, the Responder Program, and the Fire Department Program. And I think the legacy of 9/11 is that it brought New York together. It caused a lot of hardship. It caused a lot of loss. We were able to meet someone by picture tonight. Unfortunately, she wasn't here to join us from BMCC. But there are a lot of health effects that are still with us and that may manifest themselves later. So my advice to you as a health professional is that For those of you who are eligible for the health programs, and there's information on whether you're eligible based on where you lived, make sure you tell your doctor you are down here, and if there's any question that you have a health problem that may be related, sign up for the programs, because you can get an evaluation and they can make that determination. And if they make that determination, then that opens a cascade for you of other benefits that you can avail yourself of and get care by absolutely phenomenal physicians in the various programs. So, you know, we don't know what other conditions might be there. You saw some of the conditions that are up there, the cancers. We don't know if there are other conditions that will be added. We're all actively doing work to amass that data to find out if other conditions are there. But we'll keep working and trying, and we have funding for another 70 so years. So we'll have the money to keep taking care of people, providing them with the care they need and deserve. And now that the VCF has been reauthorized, we know that that care, the compensation is available to those who are also deserving as well. And you know, just circling back to my friend as I conclude, one of her first comments is, I don't want to take money from someone else. And I said, why shouldn't you be as valued as anyone else who lived there? But that, to me, sums up being a New Yorker around 9/11, which is someone else is always more deserving than me. Well, to all of you here who lived, worked in the community, you're all deserving. And if you think you have a World Trade Center health condition, please get checked out, because you deserve it, you're worth it. And I'm glad these programs exist. It's been, you know, I like to say that my children were born in 2005. I like to say these programs were like my third child in a way, because they've grown with me, and they've grown and gotten larger and larger as my kids, who are almost my height now, have, but they will outlive me. And that will be a great legacy to have. So please avail yourself of them. Thank you.
Let me say what the doctor couldn't say. If you're seeing a private doctor and he says he's no link to 9/11, or she says there's no link to 9/11, then go see Dr. Moline. We ate there, we slept there, we worked there, we cried there, we went to the bathroom there, we lived down there, we went to school down there. The absorption through the nose, mouth, and skin made us sick. I don't need anybody with 8 years of college to tell me something different. That's a fact. On 9/11, nobody went to school for 9/11. We all started off on the same playing field. So I don't care if you're a scientist, a neurosurgeon, a doctor, a garbage man, a school teacher. Nobody's going to tell me different. Those toxins made us sick. That's a fact. I made 282 trips to Washington, D.C. I had over 1,700 meetings. You name them, I met with him or her. I'll be damned if I leave here tonight and those who are eligible for this program do not get into this program. Do not make my work and my team's work go in vain. It was not just for 9/11 responders. And like Dr. Moline said, don't think you're taking something from somebody else. It is the federal government. They have the money, trust me. Trust me. We made sure of that. And part of that team of going to Washington, D.C., were two of the classiest men I've enjoyed working with. One was a battalion chief in the FDNY. He is literally the Fred Astaire of the 9/11 community. And I say that with the utmost respect. He is elegant, he is classy, and my God, the way he conducts himself, I'm sometimes jealous of him. The other one's a lawyer. And everybody who knows me knows I don't like lawyers. But this lawyer I love. And for me to love somebody like that, you got to be pretty goddamn special. He is the most caring, generous, compassionate man I've ever met. And he compares to Jon Stewart, and while in many different ways, I just, I surround myself with people that care. My intelligence and IQ hover around room temperature. But I make sure the people around me are smarter, and they better damn care about the people we're helping. Because I'm not loyal to any institution. I'm loyal to the individuals that are affected by 9/11. And this man knows that, and this man's perfected that. So Richie Alley's and Michael Barasch.
So let me correct some wrong information. You demoted me, John Field. I'm a deputy chief, 2 stripes. My background, the last 9 years of my career, though, was as a labor leader in the Fire Officers Union. Began in 2007, a year after NYPD Detective Jimmy Zadroga died of pulmonary fibrosis, the first confirmed post-9/11 related death, which began the true fight, even though it began years before, but the fight really began in 2007. So through that journey from 2007 until 2016, a couple of things happened. 2010, the original law was passed, created the 2 programs, the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victim Compensation Fund. Then we had to go back a second time to get everything reauthorized. 2015, the health program was made permanent and the Victim Compensation Fund for another 5 years. So in 2016, I retire, and I came to work for Michael Barasch. In the early days of the fight, I was joined by a colleague from the state of Maine. He's here tonight, President of the Professional Firefighters of Maine, Mr. John Martell. He's right over here. John, please stand up, stand up, stand up. Time doesn't permit me to tell you all the things that he did. But along the way, my job was to bring down sick and dying first responders in uniform, because that's what the politicians in Washington wanted to see, and that created the photo op. It was a strategy in which to try to get this law passed. It wasn't sexy to bring down stockbrokers who worked on Wall Street, who volunteered to clean up the stock exchange, like the President of the United States asked, so that we could get the financial markets up and running, and that's what they did a week after the devastating attacks. And what happened? Many of them now have cancer. Or school teachers. It's not like I didn't want to bring teachers down, but they don't wear sexy uniforms like this. Or the students, or the residents. Last weekend, Michael and I spoke at St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, the closest church to the Twin Towers. You probably noticed a little halo hanging over my head. I'm still in a state of grace, technically. We spoke to probably close to 1,000 people in 4 different masses. Nobody knew about this program. And anybody that had heard of the World Trade Center Health Program or the Victim Compensation Fund assumed, like all of you, this was for first responders. Nobody had a problem with that. Of course first responders are entitled to this, but so are you. This is the unsung, forgotten community, a community of over 300,000 people that were left behind because of the perception that this was for responders. I am enrolled in a World Trade Center Health Program. You need to be enrolled in a World Trade Center Health Program. And why? Annual medical screening exam, like the good doctor spoke about, invaluable. If you need prescription coverage to tend to your 9/11 related illnesses, fully covered by the federal government. It offers treatment options. You don't have to treat there if you have private insurance, but you can. You avail all of the facilities of the World Trade Center Health Program. And this is a national program. You're all very fortunate. You're in the New York area. you get the best possible coverage because nothing trumps New York in the World Trade Center Health Program. Nothing. Yeah, I had to go with Trump. If, however, you decide that you're going to relocate, as many people do, go down south, Florida, the Carolinas, you can transfer and receive the same basic services that you receive in New York. That is invaluable. Believe it or not, some people who find out this information choose not even to get involved. And why? I don't want to take away from somebody more deserving. Somebody's always going to be sicker, and somebody's always going to be more deserving. But the truth of the matter is, every case is decided on its own individual merits. So $1 to you is not $1 less to her. That's number one. Number two, how do I prove my illness was caused by the 9/11 toxins? You don't have to prove that. It's presumptive. You only have to prove that you lived or you worked in the downtown area. Number three, and this is an important one, I'm not really that sick. I have asthma. I have mild acid reflux. I have sinus issues. If I filed, what happens, God forbid, a few years from now if I come down with a cancer? You never give up your right to go back to the fund. So there's no reason whatsoever to not get involved. I want to talk about skin cancer. I'm a skin cancer survivor. Not normally a life-threatening illness. In my case, it was not. Unfortunately, it would be too expensive for the health program to have a dermatologist on every center of excellence in the World Trade Center Health Program. But the Victim Compensation Fund compensates for skin cancer. So everyone in this room that was exposed needs to make an appointment for an annual skin exam. And it's not because you're sun worshipers. It's because the pH of the air was the consistency of Drano. And I mentioned sun exposure because I had a colleague, a gentleman in his mid-50s, a fitness buff, runs marathons in impeccable shape, had no illnesses whatsoever, a 9/11 first responder, so good for him. Dark olive skin, happened to develop a couple of spots on his arm, some blotching, kind of concerned him. He heard our message, realized, hey, I got to get my skin checked out. So he goes to the dermatologist, gets a full-body skin exam. Everything's fine. Even the spots on his arm, it was nothing. Doctor noticed a slight discoloration on the one of his fingernails. Didn't like it. He goes in, does a biopsy. The biopsy comes back, not only was it skin cancer, it was melanoma, the most aggressive form of skin cancer. They had to cut off the tip of his finger. He had to undergo chemotherapy, but it saved his life, all for the sake of having gone for a skin exam. It's as simple as that. So you all have a vow from me. I have committed the rest of my professional career since 2016 fighting for the survivor community because I played a role in that misperception. And it's an honor for me to be a part of Michael's firm. And as I make the rounds, I know a lot of people. I speak to responders and I speak to survivors, and Michael's reputation, everybody knows who Michael Barasch is. But people will always pull me aside if someone knows me a little bit better than Michael and they want to know a little bit inside scoop on Michael. Hey, he's got this really great reputation, you know, and he seems like a good guy, but, you know, you can tell me, is he really a good guy? And it makes me laugh because, you know, he's my boss. Thank God he's a good guy because, you know, if he wasn't, I'd have to lie and then I'd lose this halo. So I would tell some anecdotal stories from behind the scenes, things that Michael does all the time that, you know, would embarrass him. But I don't have the time to do that anymore. So I'm going to be politically incorrect, and I can be because I outrank everyone here since Senator Gillibrand left. When I get asked that question about Michael, I simply say, Michael Barasch is the closest thing to an Irishman that a Jew can be. And as the son of Irish immigrants, that's my highest praise.
want to welcome everybody, and I want to say, first of all, John pretended to say, oh, I'm so glad I was asked to do this, but there was no one else. Is there anybody here who believes that John would have let anyone else be the MC tonight? I also want to say, and it didn't get a lot of publicity here, but Yvonne, I want to thank you for having the courage to come out. And first of all, I mean, I was trying to get the word out because my law firm represents over 15,000 people now in the 9/11 community. And the majority right now are first responders, but every single day we hear from more and more survivors because we're doing this outreach. So Yvonne calls me up with Olivia Cousins, and they were mad when I told them that BMCC hadn't done anything to spread the word to their former teachers. And they went into the student newspaper, and there was an article written about Yvonne and Olivia's cancer. I mean, that takes a lot of courage to do that. And as a result of that, BMCC's HR department did an unbelievable thing. They called me up and they said, we want to send a letter out to every former student and teacher. And they did that. So let's hear it for BMCC. And you know the expression, monkey see, monkey do? Well, next thing I know is New York Law School just last week decided to do the same thing. And what you heard tonight, the Department of Education is sending out 19,000 letters at the end on Friday, right? So Ellie, thank you so much. I mean, you don't want to get on Ellie's bad side. So Ellie, thank you so much. So it really did take a team effort in Washington. People thank me all the time from going down there, but honestly, I was in the background. It was John Field who brought Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart brought you, the press. The press is what shamed the legislators, and that's what got the bill passed. So to Jon Stewart and to everybody else, it really did take a team. Those of you who haven't watched the YouTube videos, watch Jon Stewart, watch Lila's testimony, watch Jackie's testimony. That's really what pushed us over. And yes, it was sad to see Police Officer Alvarez struggle through his testimony. Did anybody see that? Right, and he died 2 weeks later. Talk about courage. And John always apologizes, saying, oh, I felt terrible asking him to do this. You know what? Louis was so proud to do that. That was his last dying wish, to do that, and he did it for you. So don't make that go to waste. To Louis, really, we say thank you. So, a lot of times we get asked, well, who do you represent? And it's alarming to me. First of all, I'm going to share something that's a little scary. Oh, and before I forget, I mean, Jackie thanked the Voices of September 11th for being here today, Mary and Stephanie. They have brought, and they're so kind to do this, there are these beautiful books that were written. It's really to help people who have lost loved ones deal with the loss of a loved one. And they're giving them out for free. So when you leave tonight and you go down to the lower lobby and out to the right, they're going to be sitting at a table just giving these away. And if they run out, they'll send you one, all right? So take advantage of that. Thank you very much, ladies. Hillary, thank you for that. So I just want everybody to take a quick look at this pie chart here. So there were approximately, nobody has an exact count, of course, but there were approximately 400,000 people in the 9/11 community. So who are they? Well, we have about 100,000 responders. And responders goes from not just the firefighters, the cops, the construction workers like John, but the volunteers, the thousands of people who came down and just gave out water bottles, who gave massages. Well, guess what? They deserve whatever they get, and they deserve enormous gratitude from us. But they're just 1/4 of the 9/11 community. The World Trade Center Health Program calls everybody else, that's 300,000 people, the approximate size of the little city of Tampa. That makes up the office workers, about almost 300,000 office workers, 25,000 residents, and about 40,000 teachers and students. when Jimmy Zadroga, he was my detective, he's an NYPD detective, died, they did an autopsy. He died of pulmonary fibrosis, as Richie said. When they did his autopsy, they found ground glass in his lungs. They found asbestos, chromium, lead, benzene, all known carcinogens. And if he had it in his lungs, so do all of us. And yes, we are trying to scare you to do the right thing, to go for an annual skin checkup, to go and take advantage of the fact that you're entitled to the benefits of the health program, and if you're certified with an illness, a physical illness, you're entitled to compensation. So please, I know there are about 900 people who bought tickets tonight, but I feel like I'm speaking to 9,000 of you because I'm hoping that all of you will call 10 of your friends and let them know. And by the way, I appreciate the fact that a lot of you are filming this. I should have told you, it's being recorded. So it's on our Facebook page, and it'll be on the BMCC Facebook page. It's on my firm's website also. So here's the scary reality. Of the 100,000 people who have signed up for the health program so far, 80,000 of them are the responders. Why? Because they know about the health program. Approximately only 20,000 people in the survivor pool, which makes up 3/4 of the whole 9/11 community, only 20,000 people have applied so far. That is shocking. And as John said, it's true. Private doctors aren't going to connect the dots. They don't know about Ellie's dress. So please, don't just believe them when they tell you. So I just want to interrupt. I know I've scared everybody. I want to tell a story about, a lot of our clients, thankfully, really like us, mostly because we return our phone calls religiously. But we had a client, and it was a little bizarre. She called up. Her name was Mrs. Jones. I'm going to just protect her identity for right now. She calls up, she speaks to my wonderful receptionist, Laura, and she asks to speak to one of my partners who had just recently passed away. And Laura said, gee, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Jones. Your lawyer died. And she was a little bit in shock. And she said, okay. She calls back the next week. She goes, can I speak to my lawyer? And Laura says, Mrs. Jones, you must have been in shock. I told you your lawyer died. She goes, oh, okay. She calls back the next week and asks the same thing. Can I speak to my lawyer? And Laura says, I don't understand, Ms. Jones. Why do you keep asking? I told you your lawyer is dead. And she said, I know. I just love hearing it. Now, the truth is, you can't say that joke about any other profession. Would it be funny if I said that about a dentist? No. But anyway, I have to tell you, my partners and I and my wonderful staff, and you'll identify my staff because they're all wearing these white long-sleeve T-shirts. The lawyers, well, they look like lawyers tonight, but those are 4 wonderful young attorneys, including my lead attorney on the 9/11 cases, Lee London. Lee, will you stand up for a second? So Lee, Maria, Jennifer, and James are going to be joined by all my other partners downstairs underneath. We're going to do a Q&A after this if anybody has any questions. I know people don't like to ask personal questions, so you'll have the chance to ask any one of my staffs if you go down the lower lobby and all the way to the right. And we'll be happy to spend as much time as you want with us tonight. I urge you to fill out the questionnaire just so we can do outreach to you and let you know if there are any changes, anything else that we think you should know about. But if you want to talk to us, feel free to do that. But again, the big message, one other thing I want to talk about, there's this map. Hillary, if you can get the map up here. For some reason, when we were negotiating the passage of the bill, it was tough convincing politicians west of the Hudson River that 9/11 really even happened. Everybody was very sympathetic at the beginning, and then they thought, oh, that didn't really happen. So we had to make a compromise when we got the health program passed and when we got the Victim Compensation Fund passed. So there are different eligibility requirements. Basically, to be entitled to compensation, you need to prove that you were below Canal Street or on the Fresh Kills landfill for either caught in the dust cloud on 9/11 or for 24 hours during the month of September 2001 or for 80 hours, which is just 2 full work weeks, right? 80 hours between 9/11 and May 30th of 2002. And you need to get 2 people to sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that I saw him. I worked next to Joe. I went to school next to Francis. That's all it takes. And in your booklets tonight, there's a sample affidavit. We're happy to email them to you if you want to forward them to your friends. But that's what the government requires to get into the health program or the victim compensation fund. Now, yes, they will look at photographs. But in this day and age of Photoshop, you can take a picture of yourself with Neil Armstrong. That doesn't mean you were on the moon. So they want to see sworn affidavits. They also, if you were a student or a teacher, they want to see a transcript. They want to see maybe an employment verification form. Well, now that we've gotten the victim fund extended for 70 years, what really worries all of us is how, God forbid, you are diagnosed with one of these 68 cancers in the next 70 years. How are you going to find your witnesses? Some may have died. Many may have moved away. Your employer may have gone out of business. So I urge you right now, it's like buying a life insurance policy. Get those affidavits signed now and put them away. We will submit them to the victim fund. Hopefully they will eventually start warehousing these affidavits. But don't wait until you get sick. Doesn't that make sense? Right? Protect yourself now. I'm going to close by saying there's a reason why my firm takes all this so personally. First of all, we're blessed to be able to do the work we do for you. I mean, I don't know any other law firm that enjoys doing what we do. I mean, it gives us so much gratitude. Yes, not a day goes by without one of our clients dying. That is heartbreaking. But we're able to help their families, and I just urge you to take care of yourselves. We also, it's interesting who's attracted to work at my firm. I have 6 young people who work for me who have lost a parent or a spouse as a result of World Trade Center toxins. 9 people in my law firm, including me, are cancer survivors. And we lost one of my secretaries, Liana, to cancer. So if you do end up deciding to call us up, I just want you to know you can trust that the information you get from us is going to be compassionate, and it's going to be truthful, and it's our pleasure to help you. So thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to ask you now, if those of you who have any questions, to hand it in to one of my staff. Has anybody written any questions on these documents? I know we've already had some that were emailed to us, and Lee and my staff will be ready to answer. Well, Lee and some of my staff will, yeah. So feel free to hand in the questionnaire or some of your questions right now. And we'll do this for 10 minutes, just answer a few basic questions. Everything else will be on the FAQs on our website. And again, my last thing is just spread the word to everyone you know. Thank you.
We're gonna do a couple of little Q&As here. So if you want to leave, you're gonna miss out some good stuff. First question: what happens if I file a claim now, but I get more sick in the future? Michael, you can answer that.
All right. As one of us said earlier, you do not waive your future legal rights. So if you claim now and you get a claim for asthma, and then God forbid you get skin cancer. Yeah, can everybody be quiet as you walk out if you're not going to stay? Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I want everybody to know, this isn't like one of these auto cases that we handle. We represent someone, we get them an award. 3 years later, they need surgery. They can't go back to court years later to try to get more money from their negligence case. In the World Trade Center case, if you get an award now for one illness, and then years down the road you get cancer, you will have the right to amend your claim. You never waive your legal rights. And by the way, I wanted to add one thing Yvonne mentioned to me. This is another question somebody asked. If someone you know died years ago, their spouse can still make a claim. So please, if you know anyone who dies from cancer, please let the spouse or the family know, okay? Go ahead.
For those who are leaving early, we have lollipops. I am currently receiving disability. Will this impact my benefits? Michael.
So if you are receiving disability benefits from either workers' compensation, perhaps a pension board, if that disability is for one of the 9/11 illnesses, you can amend your claim and get lost income, all right? And I'll talk more about that individually because every pension is a little different, but Social Security disability is your proof of disability, but it can't be for a bad back that you got in a car accident. It has to be for a 9/11 related illness.
Okay. Dr. Moline, does it matter if my illness runs in the family? Do we have a microphone?
So great question. No, it's a presumption. So especially if it's a cancer, if you have a familial cancer, you know, the way I look at it is if you had a familial tendency to develop the cancer, maybe you would have gotten it at 65. But now, because you had an additional exposure, maybe you're getting it at 47. So that's the beauty of presumption. So even if you have a familial condition, your cancer would still be covered.
Dr. Moline, I like my doctor. Do I have to use the World Trade Center Health Program doctors, or can I keep my own?
What is this, Obamacare questions here? So the answer is yes and no. You have to go and get certified by the World Trade Center Health Program because they're the only ones who can certify you, but you can get your care in conjunction. You can go to your own doctor and get the care as long as they fill out some, it's not hard paperwork, but we have a huge network of providers in the metropolitan area who are not affiliated directly with the programs, but people go to their own doctors that are not part of the program all the time. So you don't have to give up your own doctor, but you will have to get certified and come in through the program in order to get certified and into the program.
I paid for my own medical expenses before I knew about the World Trade Center Health Program. Can I get reimbursed for that? Lee London.
Lee London.
So, with the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victim Compensation Fund, you have two different entities, but they work together. If you, let's say, was suffering from cancer in 2010, never made the link to 9/11, and then you joined the World Trade Center Health Program today, we can make a Victim Compensation Fund claim for you, not only for your pain and suffering, but also to reimburse you for those out-of-pocket medical expenses that you paid related to any World Trade Center physical condition. So there are many claims to make under the Victim Compensation Fund, not only loss of earnings, not only pain and suffering, but also loss of earnings claims if your cancer, respiratory condition forced you out of work and then you never were able to go back. So, you know, call us and ask any other questions that you have. We're going to go through a few more right now because we're getting a lot. John, why don't you start with this one?
I'd ask Dr. Moline for this one, but it looks like a lawyer question. How much is the attorney fee for a VCF claim? Michael.
Okay. Hi there. Congress capped lawyer fees at 10%. Some lawyers are charging expenses on top of that. I can assure you that my law firm charges no expenses at all.
How long does it take to get compensated? Lee London.
Timing is always the first question we get. You know, we help you through the process of getting into the World Trade Center Health Program. We help you with getting certified by the health program and then moving forward with a Victim Compensation Fund claim. The claims vary because every claim is individualized. They look at every claim separately, so a range for timing, it could be 6 to 8 months to 12 months to over a year to a little bit more than that. But the Victim Compensation Fund is working so hard to make the process go a lot faster. One question that I always get is, can I still be eligible if I don't have cancer? The answer is yes. You don't need cancer to move forward with the claim. James Zadroga, that this is named after, had pulmonary fibrosis. So, you have to treat your symptoms and get help now because God forbid anything happens in the future, you want to be protected.
All right. This is a great question, if you don't mind. Somebody just wrote a question, what's my injury worth? Do you mind if I take that one out of order? It seems to be one that we're getting a lot of. So it depends. The Victim Compensation Fund will give money for non-economic loss, and if you're disabled, they'll give money for economic loss. Every claim is considered different. They look at everyone as an individual. The awards range from anywhere from $10,000 for a minor respiratory condition to $90,000 for a major respiratory condition. And for the cancers, the awards are ranging from $90,000 for non-life-threatening cancer to $340,000 for multiple cancers. For those who die, the Victim Compensation Fund is giving $250,000 for the people who pass for their wrongful death. If they are married and have infant children, each one of them gets $100,000. And then again, if that person who died was working, their family, who was dependent on that income, is entitled to money for the lost income. And of course, there are set-offs. There are statutory set-offs, such as life insurance. Go ahead.
I worked at 100 Center Street. I was a correction officer in Manhattan Supreme Court, retired on disability due to work-related issues. I've been suffering from a severe ulcer and GERD. I helped with accommodate the FDI at our location. Would you like to know if you're qualified?
Yeah, all right, I'll take that. So, what? Yeah, I assume, well, if the person is a correction officer, I assume they're a responder in some way, shape, or form. But if the health program certifies your illness, you're going to get compensated. And that treatment for that illness will be taken care of by the health program. Some of the illnesses that you mentioned have not yet been linked. But as Dr. Moline said, before 2012, no cancers had been listed. Now we have 68 cancers. I don't know how many of you saw the article in the papers last week, but they're now talking about adding heart disease. So this is an ongoing thing, and we're going to be around for 70 years, and hopefully the medicine will catch up to us. All right?
One more that I keep seeing them. A lot of them, a lot of the questions I see is, what if I'm terminal? And that's a question we get all the time if you're stage 4 or terminal with your cancer diagnosis, and if there's anything that you can do for the family. Michael, do you want to take this one?
No, go ahead, you can answer it.
Okay, so with the Victim Compensation Fund, if somebody is terminal and they have a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, or if you're going through a financial hardship and can prove it up to the Victim Compensation Fund standards, your claim can be expedited and you can receive an award in less than a month. So I just wanted to put that out there just so people can understand that when they're moving forward and when they talk about timing. Another question that I received, and Jackie from the health program can answer this, but are there time limits to report the illness?
In 2010, I was told I have hypothyroidism. Am I saying that right? Hypothyroidism. Yeah. Recently, tests came back and showed normal levels, but should I still sign up? I also suffer from sinus issues, but told it was normal. Should I still sign up? I'm going to let Dr. Moline answer that question, but that's a big fat yes.
You should absolutely get evaluated. The hyperthyroidism is not considered a covered condition. Thyroid cancer is. Sinusitis is absolutely a covered condition, but you should get an evaluation just to see what's going on now, to see if you would be covered.
You gonna do that? Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
The last question I have is just about proof of presence documents, and you can talk to us about that after, because many people are asking if a transcript is enough, if you went to PACE, if you went to New York Law School, if you went to BMCC, and because of technology these days, no, a transcript is not enough. It is enough, we would want all the documentation you have, but the Victim Compensation Fund wants to speak to somebody on the phone and an eyewitness of you being in the zone. So we help obtain presence documents for many of my clients because a lot of times they only have a transcript. They went to school, over 10 years ago, and they don't know. I don't remember, but we help you search, and there are documentation that we can get you.
All right, John, you want to close it?
So with that being said, if anybody has more questions, the lawyers will be downstairs. Listen, before you guys leave, we're here to help you. I've been to 183 funerals. Louis Alvarez was my last one. Out of those 183 funerals, I paid for 9 of them because families couldn't afford to bury their loved ones. What we said here tonight, what we offered here tonight, I implore you to take serious. What you heard tonight was from the best of the best in the 9/11 community. Richie Alley's, Michael Barasch, Lee London, Senator Gillibrand, John Stewart, and I fumbled through everything else. Take advantage of this. This is the rest of your life. And the federal government isn't always going to be so gracious towards us. So please, you know the old saying, you only live once. It's not true. You only die once. You live every day. So go live the rest of your life. Thank you.